You are now entering the Horror Sanctum.
Hello and welcome back to the Horror Sanctum podcast. I'm Jay with Kellen and TJ, and we're joined today by Kristen Kaster and Matthew Ninaber. Guys, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the Sanctum.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So Matthew, you played PG, aka Psycho Goreman, in the 2020 horror comedy of the same name. You've also written and directed 2021's Death Valley, and this year's A Night's War, starring Kristen. And your brother, right? Is what you say, your brother?
Yes.
Jeremy is in it as well. We're stoked to have you guys on. Like, we've been fans of Psycho Goreman since it came out. So getting to talk to you and see your other work, we are very grateful to have you guys. So my first question is going to be about your most recent film, which is A Night's War. And did it get a theatrical release? Is it just on video on demand?
It got a limited theatrical release. I don't even know what theaters in the States, but in Canada, I know that they're having a theatrical release here as well. Okay.
Are you guys both in Canada?
We are, yeah.
I apologize on behalf of our country for the current state of affairs.
Everything.
Even more reason to appreciate you guys on. We're down in the South. We're in Nashville. But anyways, so if you're not familiar with The Night's War, a fearless knight braves a deadly realm to save the chosen one's soul, facing witches, demons, and brutal foes. He discovers her return could ignite chaos and doom humanity. I enjoyed this a lot. We watched it. We got the screener. It reminded me a lot of The Headhunter. I don't know if that's a movie that you guys are familiar with. It was a very indie movie that went to Shudder about a knight. It's kind of like a Beowulf, which is, this kind of remind me a little bit of Beowulf. Pathfinder, with the guy from, I can't think of his name, The Boys. But I was just curious, Matt, you wrote this as well as directed, played the monster. Where did this idea, inspiration come from for this flick?
Oh man, this has so many. This movie's been building for a long time. Inspiration, like I grew up as a pastor's kid, and so I've always been drawn more to the dark side and demons and the Book of Enoch and Nephilim and all that kind of stuff. So that's always been like something that is exciting. But I got movies like Beowulf, love that. Pathfinder is another inspiration, and just growing up on night movies like Willow, Knight's Tale, 13th Warrior. Like there's all these films that have kind of Conan the Barbarian kind of shaped me, and I wanted to make a movie, a medieval world, and it's just kind of like borrowing from a lot of locations, but really taking the Nephilim and playing around with Lilith and all those characters and trying to create something fresh and new. So,
yeah, and Mission Accomplished. I also had it kind of reminded me of Hellboy.
Yes,
and, like just like the storytelling and the creatures and everything. And I absolutely adore Hellboy. So like I attached to that right away.
We also had a little bit of a debate amongst us as we watched the film. I said, I think this is a low-key Christian movie. Like,
hey,
and you just said you're the son of a pastor or a preacher, right?
I'm also son of a former pastor, so takes one to know. I'm like, I see what you're doing here. I see what you're doing.
Yeah. We'll show it at the church next weekend.
Yeah. There you go.
One of the things I was curious about is with your other films, well, with Death Valley, you like to keep an open end, right? Like they don't really have like a nice, neat little bow at the end. Like you set up room for a sequel. Are you actively trying to make? I know A Night's War is still very new, but are you interested in expanding on those things, or even if it would be like a comic series or a TV series?
Yeah, exactly that. Like, unfortunately for me, I can't just write a movie. I write worlds, and it takes a long time for me to come up with something. I get really connected to my characters. So the story that I jump into on any project is the part of the story that I feel comfortable telling at this point of time with the money that I have, with the resources I have. But there's all these other places, and I think it's a little overwhelming to work with me for Kristen. we'll have like, this is Avalon, but then but then Avalon's also this and this and goes to this and then goes to this and it's connected to this over here and has this backstory over here. She's like, I just really need to know what my line is right now. And so I'm a little eccentric that way in the sense that like I hope, yeah, maybe I can make a comic book series, or maybe there's a way that I can keep telling these stories. And yeah, I really fall in love with the characters, and it's really hard for me to just, this is done. I don't know if that's possible for me. I'm like, I hope it can keep going and play around. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, like we talked about Psycho Gorman too, and I'm like, I would love for more lore with that. Like they could have made thousands of action figures with that and made a ton of money.
And there is, like, on Psycho Goreman, I've seen 3 scripts, all different timelines that are so exciting, that goes into like different universes. There's one that goes into the universe of Psycho Goreman. There's another one that is when somebody's a little bit older, going through her teenage years. There's so many cool stories, and even that, that's Psycho Goreman can just keep going. The
That
universe
would be a rough
Steve,
puberty for that.
yeah, yeah. So that's another movie that like I would just love for it to keep going and grow. So yeah.
Oh, hopefully, we're here for it. So, Kristen, how did you get involved with Death Valley and A Night's War, and Matthew here?
Yeah, well, I reached out to Matt. It's kind of a funny story, but ultimately I had reached out to him. We're both kind of from the same area in Canada, so I was looking for somebody to kind of get started with. And then I auditioned for a different role actually than Death Valley first, and then I think they kind of liked me, and then they were like, "Hey, we're going to shoot a proof of concept for Death Valley." And then I came to the studio, we did it, and then
Which we filmed right here.
yeah,
Like,
where we are.
yeah.
Yeah, and then Death Valley, we carried on with it. And then after we finished filming, at that time we had become pretty good friends, and so the touch kept, in contact. And then Matt had this script, and he was like,
I need an Avalon.
I need an Avalon." And he's like, would you want to play her? And then as soon as I read the script, I was like, yes, 100%.
Nice. You were great in both.
Thank you.
Death Valley, I enjoyed that one a lot too. I watched it when it first came out. It was a Shudder one also, I believe.
Yeah.
So for that one, mercenaries with nothing to lose are hired to rescue a bioengineer imprisoned in a Cold War bunker. Upon entering the ominous facility, they find themselves in a fight for their lives when they come under attack from an unknown and deadly creature. This one, again, I'm going to ask you where your inspiration from.
Same answer.
But I'm assuming like some Resident Evil.
Resident Evil,
Doom.
100%. Yeah, Doom.
Yeah.
A lot of video games. The Flood from Halo. Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. That creature, I never played the Resident Evil video games, but the monster, the main one, reminded me of the
tongue
one from the
licker
first movie.
thing.
The tongue, yeah. I got a lot of vibes there, which leads me to this question. You played the monster.
Yeah.
Psycho Goreman, you played the monster. In A Night's War, you played the monster. Do you just, I mean, you're a good looking guy. Do you just like to be under
People just like to
pounds and
cover my
pounds of
face,
makeup?
man.
Like, do you enjoy being able to
No,
change
I,
like
I
that?
honestly hate it. I like the idea of it, and I like the first hour of it, and then after that, I'm just like, what's wrong with me? Why do I do this to myself? And like the thing is, when I did Psycho Goreman, Steve's like, if you ever need a monster, as my thank you for being Psycho Goreman, I will make you monsters because I have all your molds, I have everything. So the only way I can actually afford to put monsters in my movie is if I play the monsters because it's all built off of me. So it's
That is a great answer, and that makes
Yeah.
complete sense.
yeah. So
I'm curious how you guys got as an aspiring indie filmmaker myself. Actually, Jay and I have done a script that we're working on getting done, and got a few other scripts. You got to massage a lot of things. It takes a while to get anything made.
yeah.
I'm curious how you guys got linked up with Shudder. If it was you made it for the budget, you made it, and then it was just sold to Shudder as like a distribution type thing, or if Shudder was involved, because I hear different things based on level of involvement with some of their exclusives and originals.
Yeah, so Shudder came on after, like, the connection with Psycho Goreman definitely helped. and that put me on the radar. And the whole idea that Psycho Goreman was making a movie helped open the door. We made the movie and finished it, had everything wrapped, and it was basically we had one shot, and we're just going to show it to them and just see if this is something that you guys are interested in. And from there, it was just like, yeah, absolutely, they loved it. Epic is the one that actually took them in and took the meeting, and yeah, they loved it and said, let's do it. So that was that story. I don't know if that's duplicatable. Yeah, it's and then since then it was like for the next movie, we emailed them and we never got a response back. So we're like, oh, okay. So it's like it's every time, someone moves on or the contact that you had goes and gets a job somewhere else and you're starting kind of from zero and just hoping for that in or that happenstance. And a lot of it's just luck and constantly knocking at doors. So, which is not great to say for inspiring filmmaker. Like, how do you do it? Oh, you
Right.
just keep sending messages and hope something happens. And unfortunately, it's really not. I don't think it's the most talented people that get their movies made. It's the people who are just relentless of knocking on doors, sending messages, and just saying, "Hey, hey, over here, hi," like,
Right.
and yeah,
Persistence beats resistance, right?
yes, yes.
So your character, Kristen, named Avalon. I'm obviously that is some connection to Arthurian legend. In Arthurian legend, Avalon was the land where Morgan Le Fay lived, the sorceress. That's where King Arthur's sword, Excalibur, was created. Uh, all of that kind of thing. Is there anything of Arthurian legend that inspired this character or the way you play this character?
That's to you. That's not to me.
I think it's to both of us. To be honest, not for me, from my point of view, my perspective and my take on the character and kind of prepping for her, but maybe Matt had a little bit of that in the backstory.
There, Avalon was like Avalon to me was, um, oh man, I wanted
Did you
her to
see a
be.
Toyota drive by and that's what, hey, that's a cool
It's
name.
like, that's a cool
Toyota
name. No,
Avalon.
like I knew Avalon from Arthurian legend, and from that, I really wanted to make something that was just a really strong woman, like from Terminator 2. To be honest, that's where the inspiration for Avalon came from. Like the name obviously comes from what you referenced already, but a lot of it was taking inspiration from Terminator 2 and like how do you create a really strong female character that's not nose, that's balanced, that like just felt fresh. So that's what we set out to do.
Yeah.
I feel like that was a horrible answer, but
No,
it's like, what was your inspiration for your medieval movie? James Cameron's Terminator 2. Yeah, I just love that
I can
movie.
I can definitely see the Linda Hamilton coming out. Yeah, for sure. Um,
So,
Also, I'm curious how much the movie Edge of Tomorrow, was that at all an inspiration?
Edge of Tomorrow is one of my favorite movies.
Okay, there you
I
go.
love that movie.
Yes,
I
yes.
just, yeah,
Just the sci-fi conceit of dying and repeating that process and
dying,
having to
repeating
learn from your
Groundhog
deaths, and
Day.
yeah,
Absolutely.
and then
And
putting that kind of concept in a totally different world, different type of film. It's like having Edge of Tomorrow playing in Dante's Inferno,
And
which
and that's literally when I pitched this to my brother Jeremy. I'm like, that's what I want. And I think what I like doing is taking things that work in different genres and seeing if you can mash them up differently. And that's where I get excited. So like I play a lot of video games, so people sometimes in the reviews rip me apart for that. I'm like, yeah, yeah, that's probably right. I love video games, so I'll take stuff from that. I love other movies, so taking like you said, a sci-fi film and throwing it into a fantasy world and seeing if that works and changing the rules a little bit is exciting to me. So
I
yeah,
don't know
well,
that we've ever, or in my life, I've ever talked about a film like this where we've compared it to so many other films, and it works, right? And then
yeah,
even the one we're not thinking about, Terminator 2, was was an inspiration. Like it's nuts.
yeah,
well, I mean, that's how you take creativity. And I mean, we all have influences. We all have things that kind of shape us and shape our perspectives. And all the great creators, you know, figure out their own unique way to mesh these things together and create something new. That's how all of the filmmaking world and all of literature and everything is just recycling and reshaping in a different kind of way. And I think what you guys have been doing in your films really do that well. So kudos.
I'm gonna steal everything you said next time I go in an interview, like word for word. That was great.
Do that, please. Just
He'll type it out. We'll mail it to you.
Yeah,
Please do.
just write it out. for
yeah,
us.
just give Horror
Give me a
Sanctum.
second with my cue cards.
Yeah, there you go. So, I have to go back to the thing you said about the Nephilim and Book of Enoch. I love
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I wasn't necessarily picking up on that reading of this film because there's a straight way to kind of like just these are the demons, right? Whatever.
Right.
But I'm curious now more of kind of what kind of lore you envision with kind of the fallen angels, the Nephilim, which are
Yeah. So like the whole
because
idea,
Nephilim are like the offspring, like they're half
they're the
celestial,
halves.
half
And
not, right?
And that's kind of something that we're playing around with. Like we go to hell in our movie, and it's not really the layer of hell that we go to is just the Nephilim. It's the half gods. So we haven't even experienced like the real demons of this world, which is where I really wanted to go. But like again, if I'm going to do them, I want to show them on a scale that really showcases it well. And the other thing that we're playing around with is that these, if you read the Book of Enoch, these creatures originally guided men, and then all of a sudden they got to a spot that they decided, actually, instead of being your guy's mentor, we kind of want to rule over you. And I started just reading culture after culture where the gods just demanded mass blood sacrifices, whether it's the Aztecs or the Greeks. And I'm just like, I just love this idea that these Nephilim gods, just their power comes from blood. So the witches constantly are just like draining blood from the knights and Bodhi, and it's kind of like I want to show that on a massive scale, if that made sense. So that was kind of like the lore that I was going into, that their power came from the blood of humans. So
Awesome.
yeah, and they haven't put me in a home yet, so I get to just write about this stuff, and yeah, it's all good because I'm just it's creative stuff, creative writing.
Right.
So like was mentioned in the beginning, I do something a little different. It stemmed from my lack of movie knowledge and I'm the noob in the group. So I figured I would do something a little different, and we call it Killing Fast 5.
Here we go.
And that's because we don't have a budget for special effects. So that's what you get is me showing 5 fingers. So what I'm going to do is I've got a list of 5 questions. I'm going to ask y'all the question, and then y'all just give me the first thing that pops off on the top of your head.
Nice. Are
Sound
we
easy
going
enough?
ping pong?
Yeah.
Okay, Kristen, you're up first, so I can
Okay.
think.
Cheating. I love it. Let's get started. So are you ready?
Yeah.
Perfect. Question number 1. Sites like Rotten Tomatoes split ratings into 2 categories, critics and audiences. Would you rather have a terrible critic score but amazing audience reception, or have a movie be critically acclaimed but low audience scores?
Ooh.
Oh, I got mine.
I think critically acclaimed.
I
Any
take
reason?
audience.
Audience. So we've already split the room. The after recording is going to be fantastic. All right, this next question you actually kind of touched on already. Your like for it. So you mentioned you like meshing genres. And medieval era movies tend to lend themselves to the thoughts of witches, demons, and mythical beasts. What other era in human history do you think it would be fun to drop those kind of characters into?
Oh, I'd love to do a spaceship odyssey with that. Just a minotaur on a spaceship. Anyway, that's mine.
Whoa, I don't know.
I haven't seen Space Witches yet.
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh, I guess Dune is kind of like Space Witches. Never mind. I just do it different.
Sort of like demon western type
Oh,
of
that'd be
thing,
fun.
like demon horses or like
That would be really
dead
fun.
horses.
Western was actually what I had in my head. I was thinking
Okay.
of the Cowboys and Aliens. I was like, you never
Yeah.
see you never see Westerns have anything other than cowboys and Indians
Cowboys.
and people shooting people with guns.
That's a
Not really
great
gonna
idea.
produce anything else. Um, all right, question number 3. Would you rather create a story that stands the test of time or a character that does?
Ooh,
Mm.
I'm going with story.
I was gonna say a story as well.
Okay. Number 4. We're actually moving along. This is
Yeah.
one of the quicker ones. And usually I have somebody that just kind of I don't know. So moving to number 4. If you could be dropped into any movie as the main character and it become real life for a week,
Hmm.
what movie would it be? You replace the main character and this becomes your life. It's real. It's not a movie set, but for a week you get to live that character's life.
Oh my gosh. I already know mine.
Go.
I'm going Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah.
I just want to be a hobbit.
Wow.
I just want to be a hobbit so bad. That'd be so exciting.
Wouldn't you be too big to be a hobbit?
I can't just trick
Gets
me.
dropped into the movie as a hobbit.
Sure.
TJ, keep up.
I would
Okay.
that would be so fun.
We didn't know the rules. He didn't know the rules.
I don't know the lore. We're creating it on the fly.
Oh my goodness. I think maybe Matthew McConaughey in The Gentleman, just because it's so different.
He
than
was
what
that
I
was so good.
do.
I've actually rewatched that scene where he busts in the scene with his wife. He comes in after the car wreck, and I've rewatched that scene so many times because it's so good the way they draw that out. So yeah, great choice.
Thank you.
All right, well, we're on to question number 5. Are you ready to round this out?
Let's do it.
Who would win in a fight to the death, Psycho Goreman or the Green Power Ranger?
Psycho Goreman.
Psycho Goreman.
There's not even like yeah. You've only seen Psycho Goreman held back. You haven't seen him like full power. So
I don't know.
Yeah.
At the end of the movie, when he starts destroying a city by himself,
that's still with the power of love.
not immense rage and hate.
Yeah.
And that concludes Kelton's Fast 5 graphic coming soon.
I had one other question because I was looking into your filmography, Matthew, and I was curious if you could speak at all to your role in a film that we reviewed last year in A
Yeah,
Violent
I know where
Nature.
you're going with this in Violent Nature. What do you want to know? I'll tell you whatever you want to know.
Well, it looks like
What the fuck was the mask? Why did it look like a minion?
that.
Every day on set, I was like, so you guys know there's a giant minion, right? They're like, yeah,
Nah,
yeah,
nah.
yeah. It's like, okay.
So you
Um,
played Johnny for
yeah, I
some
played-
of it, but
I played so that movie went through 3 iterations. So I was part of movie 1, and it's probably one of the biggest sets I've ever been on. And then the final movie they did is probably one of the smallest sets that I've seen. So Chris did the makeup for PG on Psycho Goreman. So good friends with Chris, and he got this opportunity to make that movie. And the first version of that was massive. It was so huge, and the shots and I would say it was the biggest disaster I've ever been on for the first run through. And I'm pretty sure Chris has been very like I'm not outing like he will lead with this, and he has said this multiple times that it's just everything that could go wrong went wrong. And like from camera to equipment to makeup to like for me the original mask, if you watch the BTS, you'll actually see me slowly getting more infected because there's something that they're using. Now I went through Psycho Goreman, had no allergic reaction to anything that they used on that, but there's something that was being used that I'm like, guys, I'm swelling up into the place that and then it was a mask on a mask on a mask. So like there was this like cowl, and there was a face that goes onto the cowl for when the minion mask comes off, and there was no air holes, so like you can't breathe. And so it just got to a spot that I ended up being in the hospital, and they just had to keep shooting version 1 of that without me. And then when it came time for the next one, I kind of wasn't available, if that made sense. So
Oh, wow.
it was a crazy thing, but they ended up taking the first movie and then used it as the storyboards for the 3rd version of the film that they went out to do. And then like he went from a crew of like I don't know, sometimes maybe like 50, 60 on set to about 6 or 7 of like friends that went up to film that movie. So what he did and what he pulled off was truly a huge feat. So it's just like it's really impressive what he did.
Wow.
And I think other people would have given up because like he had everything go wrong the first time, and then the second, and then he went back at it and didn't give up. So it's just like it's actually a great movie to study just as like from a perseverance point of view. So
Did you ever figure out what the reaction was?
no idea. And again, I went and did a bunch of other monster suits, and I haven't had a reaction since. So it was such a weird thing that happened. So do we have a
Um,
hockey jersey on right now?
Mhm.
he had to
did.
change for you guys.
As soon as
We
I-
ch-
yes.
He had to get more Canadian up in it.
Yeah,
I love
that
it.
game is that game happening tonight? It is
Yeah,
happening. Yeah,
it's
that's
Yeah.
cool.
This is
That game.
one of my favorite Canadian shows of all time,
Yes,
Letterkenny.
yes.
So
Yeah,
Nice.
I would rep since y'all were here. Thank you for
love
coming.
it.
Love it.
Love it.
I got two more quick questions. It's kind of the same question for each of you, and then we can kind of wrap up. Kristen, who's your biggest influences? Like, did you grow up wanting to be an actress? Was it something you just kind of fell into? You just happened to know someone who needed an actress? Like, how did you get to where you are, and were there any influences along that way?
Yeah, I think my parents can say I've always wanted to be an actress. From a young age. I think any movie I saw like a strong lead female character, I was like, I want to do that one day. So I remember, like, I think maybe one of the first movies I saw with a character like that was Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, with Angelina Jolie. So I was like, okay, she seemed pretty badass to my, like 6-year-old brain. And then it kind of just went from there. I think like Charlize Theron in uh
Eon
my
Flux.
no, what's that one I'm trying to think of? With the War Boys. Why am I blanking
Oh,
on
Mad
that?
Max.
Mad Max, yes,
Oh,
thank you. Yeah, just like strong females. Linda Hamilton, another one. Yeah, so that's kind of where I draw my inspiration.
Matthew, same kind of question. Like, was there a certain direction you were trying to go? Because you're a writer, actor, director.
Mhm.
I'm just obsessed with telling stories. Like I daydream all the time. Half the time, I'm not even where I am physically. I'm just in my head somewhere. And I've always been drawn to stories, like reading books, movies, the whole thing. Like I love every part of the filmmaking process, whether it's storyboarding, writing, editing, acting. Like I just think making movies is so much fun, and it's the thing that if I could do that, I'm happy. Like it's just yeah, I don't want to do anything else. I love telling stories, and I love being part of the process. And it's such a pleasure and a gift. And I'm very grateful for being able to do whatever part of it I can be part of. So,
So what kind of genre are you tackling next in your mishmash world of totally different types of things?
I'm jumping into a mystery right now. So we're almost done filming it and editing it. So that's doing some detective stuff.
Nice.
So been taking inspiration from the movie Seven and
Ooh,
Zodiac,
one of my
and
favorites.
so good, and trying my hand at it. And then we have a couple other films that we're getting ready to go, and might jump back into medieval. But I really want to do a big monster, like monsters, like multiple monsters. So that's kind of what I'm playing with right now.
Nice.
Nice.
Just one more real quick. Who's your biggest influence in your filmmaking? Like what director is you take everything, like you would be him if you could, or her?
Oh, that's so hard 'cause I don't have one. Like when you were talking about Hellboy, I just love that world and the whole production team that put that together. But also, and this is not a popular one. This is like this is before he went off on the rails. Mel Gibson was such an influence for me growing up. Like watching Braveheart was just seeing what he could do and how real it felt. I just loved his movies. And James Cameron's another director that I just love his stuff. I love how he approaches stories. And I feel like if I could take those three and kind of merge them in, take a little bit from each one, I would really, that's who I borrow a lot from.
Nice. Good answers. Good answers. All right. So that's going to be it for this episode. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel wherever you're listening to this podcast. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Amazon Music. We have a playlist featuring soundtrack scores, artists, and guests we've had on the show. So go check that out as well. Kristen and Matthew, thank you guys so much for joining us. I think A Night's War comes out. I think you can pre-order on Amazon. I think it comes out April 15th. Right. It's available to stream now. You want just let everybody know where they can find your work and enjoy the product that we have just enjoyed again today.
Yeah, so it's on Apple TV right now, and it's on Amazon Prime, and if you're in Canada, it's going to be coming out in April. In the States, it's already out. And if you want to keep up with us, just I think Instagram is our place. We don't have a lot of social media handles, but yeah, drop us a line, answer any question. So
awesome. Go give them a follow. Check out the movies. They're all a lot of fun. So, all right, signing off. I'm Jay with Kellen, Kristen, Matthew, and TJ. And until next time,
keep it spooky.